Winnie Jones, and please interrupt and ask me questions, because one thing we don't know is what you know about this. It's past and the process that we're going through and so forth. So please interrupt me as I keep going through. But I had to bring this. Okay. It is not a new idea, the port of Bainbridge Island. This is the Bainbridge Review from September 5th, 1973, when the idea of creating a port was put forward. And at that time, you'll find this amusing, that time the moratorium on the creation of a port had just been enacted. You could not create a new port for 73 to 86. So the way this group, which was the Chamber of Commerce and a man by the name of Russ Trask, the way they were going to do it is that this was going to be put in as annexed to the port of Bremerton. So I had to bring that one up, and the idea that what he was planning was that he would the group would use the port to acquire the land where the Eagle Harbor condominiums are now, and create a marina and a public park. So the intention was definitely good there. To put a big umbrella on a very complicated issue, just as we have a park district with 5 park commissioners at large who look after our parks, we feel that we should have a port district to look after the harbors and surrounding waters. Plus, with a port, you have the added benefit of being able to stimulate the local economy and businesses and provide jobs. So that's sort of the big umbrella point. We've spent a fair amount of time thinking through what a mission would be, and we've the proposed mission for the Port of Bainbridge Island would be to reasonably maintain the island's harbors and surrounding waters while providing community access, facilities, opportunities, and services. So now, why now? And to back up on the story, I've been involved with this peripherally for probably 7 years, I guess. Originally with attempting to get Washington State Ferries to honor 2 agreements that they have had made previously with the city of Winslow, and then later with the city of Bainbridge Island. One of them going back to 1974, where the building permit for the Eagle Harbor condominiums was granted on the proviso that portion of that land would be used for a public dock and a public marina. The second agreement, 1995, was the Memorandum of Understanding of Agreement, MOA, between the city and Washington State Ferries, that 1 acre of the land would be used for a boatyard. Okay, so all the research, I start digging into past documents and past city documents, past planning documents, and you kept coming back to, why didn't we have a port? Why don't we have a port district? So then you start doing some research and you find out, okay, at one point, Bainbridge had 8 port districts. And they came about because we had the mosquito fleet running around the island, stopping in at 17 different little places, and right after the Port Act in 1911, the mosquito fleet started about 8-10 years later, and so then how does a group of homes that are 10 and 15 homes get together and create a dock and finance a dock? and they created these port districts. Several of them had little general stores, and that lasted through, and virtually all were allowed to dissolve in the 50s, because you now had regular ferry service, and then when the bridge went in 57, there was now you could move around the island, because at that time you couldn't move across the island. And the idea is definitely there, and as things progressed with last summer with Washington State ferries, and for the 4 or 5 years prior to that, I think many of us, and working with state legislators as well, and trying to get public access to a portion of Washington State Ferries maintenance yard land. The whole thing came to a finale, so to speak, last June, when David Mosley sent the city a letter saying that he would honor the 95 Memorandum of Agreement for use of an undesignated 1 acre of land on the property, and or he would offer $2 million, and at that time his letter stated $2 million for purchase of another piece of property or a water-based waterfront community project of their approval. Well, then the community started rallying, and this is where the need for improvements with boat launching, improvements in Eagle Harbor, all came to a head. We had the city started asking for requests for proposals for how to use the $2 million, and requests for proposal on how to on the boatyard, and we ended up with 2 really good boatyard proposals, and really well done. This is one of the boatyard proposals, well thought out. Spent a fair amount of time on doing these, and this was one for the use of the $2 million on. Would be an extension off of waterfront dock and so forth. So what happens? The bottom line is that the city takes the $2 million, and with that, they sold their rights to any claim of Washington State Ferries land, past, present, future, or assigns. So, but what it did show was that the community really was beginning to coalesced on all the shortcomings of not having what a port district could do. And you have things that surface like we have, as I got from the Department of Licensing, we have 3,000 boat owners on the island, and we don't have a fuel dock. We have a case, October 07, where two kids in the boat trying to get the last bit of gas out of the gasoline for their water ski boat or something, I think, probably. They headed to Brownsville to get gas, and then they ran out of gas mid-channel, just as a ferry's coming around the corner, and there's flares going off, and so the police boat has to come in and get the kids. So this then come about January. Jim Llewellyn calls me, because I'd been talking to him about this way back in 2006 when he was on city council, like, why don't we have a port district? The city doesn't want to, it isn't a priority. Every city council person that I've talked to, it's anything to do with improving the waterfront, anything to do with improving the road ends is on the bottom of the priority list. And so in January, Jim called and said, do you still want to do try getting a port on the ballot? And I said, well, it's a huge project. Let's try. And that's when we went on the mission to get the requisite number of petition signers. We had to get 10% of the number of people that voted in the last election, and there was exactly 13,394. So which meant that we had to get 1,394 verified signatures, and which is what we did, and got it on the ballot. And I had asked the county, give me a timeline, back it up to get it on a November ballot. When do you want these signatures by? And they'd said, you know, May 31st. Well, we didn't make May 31st. It was June 16th when I got them all down there. And then they get 15 days to verify them. And so then on like end of July, very end of July, I get the email saying that the filing window for the port commissioner candidates is going to be 3 days hence. It was a Thursday, and the window is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday the next week. Well, I'm too late. You picked it up as a story. Yeah, Tristan, I think, called me and got that in, but it was too late for the review, and so I just went out to everybody that had an email list and everywhere and said, okay, we just need, and I was very, I even called the county and I said, okay, what happens if we don't have 5? I mean, if we don't have 5, can we get an extension? And they said, no, can't do that. And so then I thought, okay, let's sit tight. Well, we ended up with 14 candidates filing, so which tells you of the interest. There's 2 Harbor Commission candidates that are currently on the Harbor Commission. There's 2 past City Council people. And when you go through, I mean, the job to-do list for a port is already there. And one thing Bainbridge does is it overstudies everything. We have, you know, studies upon studies of studies, right? So, I mean, if you go through the harbor management plan, okay, written in 1990.
We'll get to that in just a second. I have a couple of questions about how
Sure.
it was founded when you, since you just mentioned that. You had 5 positions that you weren't sure if you could fill 5 positions because of the time frame. How did you guys arrive at 5?
Oh, okay.
Port of Bremerton has 3, for example.
Okay.
Why 5?
Research. Good. Keep asking me these questions because keep asking these questions. Research on ports around the country, around the state. 75 in the state. There are 5 that have 5 commissioners. The port of Edmonds is putting on the ballot this fall, change from 3 to 5. Reason for 5, multiple reasons. 5 at large. 5 serve for 4 years. 3 serve for 6 years. With the Open Meeting Act, if you have 3 commissioners, 2 of them can't talk together because we now have a quorum. 5 at large versus district, they then can move from one end of the island to the other, and all 5 are then responsible to everyone on the island. Hence the reason for the 5. And the other thing we're very much planning on doing is that there would be a Port Advisory Committee, as there is with the Port of Manchester, the Port of Olympia, the Port of Port Townsend has just installed one too. I think it'll be very critical during the first couple of years in the establishment of goals, directions, policies, procedures, etc., to have an advisory committee. And one of the very nice things on Bainbridge is that, as we found out with the huge Winslow Tomorrow project, there are some amazing people of talents in civic financing and marine architecture that will come to fore, hopefully, as candidates for a Port Advisory Committee.
How many people would that be?
I don't know. I know that either Manchester is 12 and Olympia is 10.
Okay. So that's a larger group generally than
right.
the number of.
And they, Port Townsend has taken and chosen people from various aspects. They wanted someone that was involved in the boating community, someone that was involved in the school, someone was. So that will be a decision that the commissioners would determine.
And the Harbor Commission stays intact? The city has.
The city has a harbor commission. Has a harbor commission that I don't know if it'll stay intact because two of the current harbor commission people are running for port commissioners, and as every one of the harbor commission people say, they put together proposals for the city and they are never funded.
That was the other thing I was going to ask before we get into some of the other goals. It sounds like part of it sounds like maybe there's a number of reasons why kind of behind this, but one of them is a dissatisfaction with how the city council has handled harbor site issues, and a couple in particular that you pointed out there. Do you worry that creating a port then just sets up two agencies that butt heads against one another, and is that the right thing? Does that help get projects done, or are you creating an agency that just would then be at odds with the city council?
I would think that the city would be in favor of this because it has the possibility of reducing their responsibilities, reducing their overhead, and increasing revenue. And yes, you will, I'm sure when the Port of Poulsbo was created in 1951, that those port commissioners had to sit down and determine who's going to do what and what do you not want to do now. The city of Bainbridge Island, for instance, has multiple times attempted to pass off waterfront park to the Parks Department. The Parks Department doesn't want waterfront park. It would be an ideal project or ideal for a port to handle.
You said that you would imagine the city would be in favor of this because they would gain revenue. How do you see how do you see that happening?
They will gain revenue because, as I said, the economic stimulus side of a port could, if this was to come to fruition, say this is just the simple version, just increased boaters overnight, stimulating, you could help with the downtown businesses in their projects and promotion. You could do like the Port of Bellingham does with the Chamber of Commerce in Bellingham. They sponsor the whole of July 4th weekend.